to Jeanne for a second word.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is Matt Larson. I have the pleasure of serving as the mayor of Snoqualmie. I want to give you a warm welcome on behalf of our city council, and thank you for coming out on this beautiful Saturday evening to help us celebrate not only the substantial build out of Snoqualmie Ridge, but also the dedication of this beautiful park in the honor of former Mayor Jeanne Hansen, who is often referred to as the mother of Snoqualmie Ridge. So at this time, I'd like to ask the Snoqualmie Police Explorers Post 2005 to please present the colors.
Please stand for the presentation of the colors. Uniformed personnel, attention. Color guard, attention. Color guard, advance. Uniformed personnel, hand salute. Color guard, halt. Will the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, host the colors. Color guard, reform. Forward. The audience may be seated.
Let's give them a round of applause. Before I get started, I want to make a couple of quick notes. One is we had a choice this year between scheduling this event when we were certain that the park would be complete or scheduling it when we were more sure that we would get good weather. The bad news is the park's not going to be complete. We're going to have to wait about 4 more weeks. After this event, we're going to have to close it for about 4 more weeks. The good news is, though, we chose weather, and you can't get much better than this, right? Well, sorry for the disappointment on the opening. But please get the word out, and sorry for any inconvenience. Secondly, Snoqualmie has one of the highest ratios of children to adults in the state of Washington, where about 35% of our population is 18 years or younger. So as you can see, there's lots of kids here today. And to liven things up, because for the next half hour we're going to do some boring adult stuff, I want to ask all the kids that every time you hear the word Snoqualmie, use the international sign language for applause and just go like this, okay? Moms and dads, you help them out, or give them a nudge when you hear the word Snoqualmie, right? So that's all you guys got to listen for, otherwise it's all blah, 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 okay? All right. So I don't know about you guys, but I thoroughly enjoyed the Seahawks trashing the Green Bay Packers on Thursday. Seahawks! I give a tepid apology to any Green Bay Packer fans out there. But you know what makes sports a lot of fun is you always hear a lot of numbers and statistics that really informs folks. So I thought it would be fun to give you some statistics for Team Snoqualmie Ridge. For acreage, Snoqualmie Ridge represents a total of 2,084 acres. Of that, 850 acres, or in excess of 40%, was preserved as open space to protect natural systems in the creeks and the bogs and wetlands and steep slopes. In addition to that, it was required in the developer voluntarily offered to provide preservation on 9,000 acres around and inside of Snoqualmie for lands that went into permanent preservation would never be developed as a part of this development. We live in this is an intentional live, work, play, pedestrian-oriented design in Snoqualmie Ridge. It is not your typical bland, auto-centric suburban sprawl. For living, we've built 3,600 new homes that are very, very diverse in their design, size, and cost, and 400 more yet to come. For working, we have a new 90-acre business park that will generate over 1 million square feet of commercial property and generate in excess of 1,000 local jobs. For playing, we have 29 miles of trails, 28 mini parks, 5 neighborhood parks, and as of, well, 4 weeks from now, 3 community parks. For shopping, a new 10-acre, 100,000 square foot retail center. For new infrastructure, it's 42 miles of new streets or roads. That's the equivalent of building a road from here to downtown Tacoma. 71 miles of sidewalk. That's like building a sidewalk from here to 3 miles south of Olympia. And 9,200 street trees. That's like 9,200 street trees. 54 miles of water lines, 7 pump stations, 5 reservoirs, 5 700-foot deep water wells, 33 miles of waistline, 14 lift stations, a new state-of-the-art $25 million treatment facility that feeds 12 miles of mainline irrigation pipe with reclaimed water, 70 miles of storm drain lines, 4,500 storm drains, 54 storm ponds, and 12 bioswales and rain garden features. For new city facilities, a new police station, 3 new public works buildings, a new fire station, new city hall, and a new community center, which rekindled a decades-old partnership with the YMCA. Other facilities include new schools, a new library, a new hospital, and a world-class tournament players golf course. All of this was accomplished as our population grew 7.5 times larger, from 1,600 residents in 1997 to 12,130 today. By 2016, we should top out at about 13,000. Hundreds of public and private leaders, managers, planners, architects, engineers, builders, biologists, and engaged residents had a hand in creating Snoqualmie Ridge. Unfortunately, and obviously, we don't have time today to recognize all those folks. However, I'm privileged to introduce 5 distinguished speakers that will join me in dedicating this park and in recognizing all who made Snoqualmie Ridge and the city as a whole the extraordinary community it is today. So I'd like to start by introducing to you the Deputy King County Executive, Fred Jarrett. Fred was a Mercer Island City Council member from 1979 to 1995, where he served as mayor from 1983 to 1987. Former mayors Jarrett and Jeanne Hansen were 2 of the original founding board members of the Sound Cities Association. From 2001 to 2009, he served in the Washington State House of Representatives. Fred joined the State Senate in 2009 prior to being appointed as the Deputy King County Executive in 2010. Folks, please give a warm welcome to Fred Jarrett.
Thanks, Pat. I bring you greetings from County Executive Donald Constantine, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but that was my good fortune, because I did have the time, the pleasure of serving with Jeanne when she was mayor and I was mayor. And Jeanne was a master of transformations. She was a part of transforming what now is the Sound Cities Association from a dinner group into a political force. And as a consequence of that, got those of us who came from suburban communities engaged in the development of the policies around the Growth Management Act in the early 90s. One of the things that was most important in that negotiation was getting the urban growth boundary set in a way that this community could be brought into existence. Jeanne was instrumental in that, and I think that this is a tribute to her political skill and a wonderful way to remember a great member of your community. So thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here and celebrate with you, and to celebrate my good friend, Jeanne Hansen. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Fred. And now it is my pleasure to introduce King County Councilmember Kathy Lambert. Kathy served in the State House of Representatives from 1995 until 2001, when she was elected to the King County Council. She serves District 3, the largest of the 9 county districts, encompassing nearly half of the area of the county. She is a tireless advocate for East King County cities and rural areas. Please warmly welcome Kathy.
Thank you. What a privilege to be here with you today. Isn't this the greatest afternoon you could possibly ask for? It's amazing. Thank you for all that you're doing. I really appreciate being here today because I did know Jeanne, and she was a true public servant. Whenever you talked to her, she was always thinking about what she could do to help her constituents, and it was always on her mind. And I really appreciated that because she was a great role model too. So I've been asked to give you some background on the beginnings of Snoqualmie Ridge. And as I was driving up here today and I saw Better Way Southeast, it looks like Better Way, see? And so I thought that that was kind of fun. It started down there at Better Way. The development that's located there, which is not part of Snoqualmie Ridge, however, it had a huge impact in the Snoqualmie Ridge development. In 2001, the City of Snoqualmie was deciding what are we going to do with 150 acres of development called Falls Crossing, which threatened the Snoqualmie Falls. And people were very concerned about what was going to happen to the falls. So the mayor at the time was Fuzzy Fletcher. And as you knew Fuzzy Fletcher, how many of you knew Fuzzy Fletcher? Okay, so you will not be surprised that Fuzzy said, there must be a better way. Although he might have said more than that too, that we won't quote. So he decided that he would get a group together, and part of the group was the Cascade Land Conservancy, which is now known as Forterra, and they helped to negotiate with the Falls City developer, the City of Snoqualmie, King County, and Weyerhaeuser, who was led at the time by Peter Orser, who's with us today, and has had a huge impact in this area and all across the county. In exchange for the county and city supporting the approval of the second phase of Snoqualmie Ridge, Weyerhaeuser agreed to buy out the interests of the Falls City developer, and then also to put in perpetuity, which is of course a very, very long time, like forever, to surrender the development rights on several thousand acres of the land located south of I-90. Since then, nothing has been typical that has happened up here, which is why you have such a beautiful area. It has wonderful conservation, pedestrian-oriented design, diversity in housing and income types, ample provision and mitigation for parks and schools, and you're doing an excellent job of making sure those schools are well filled up. And as a former teacher, I really appreciate that. The creative risks that were taken were amazing, and it just goes to show when you have capable citizens, elected officials, business people, and citizens getting together to say, we're going to think outside the box. We're going to look at what our common interests are and how can we make this area the very best it can be. So on behalf of the colleagues of mine on the King County Council, I want to thank you for the work that you've done for creating this beautiful part of King County, the community that you are. Congratulations, and congratulations to the legacy of Jeanne Hansen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, at this time it gives me pleasure to introduce you to Peter Orser. Peter Orser became president of Quadrant Homes in 2003 and CEO of the Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Company in 2010. He currently serves as a commissioner of the King County Housing Authority and a treasurer of the Cascade Land Conservancy. He also served on the Mercer Island City Council alongside fellow councilman Fred Jarrett. He earned a bachelor's degree in natural sciences and a master's degree in urban planning. His diverse background and decade of leadership at Quadrant and RICO greatly added to a successful and lasting legacy in Snoqualmie Ridge. He is now enjoying his retirement following Weyerhaeuser's sale of its real estate holdings just 2 months ago. Folks, please welcome Peter Orser.
Yes, that's my biggest achievement. I actually retired. It feels good, doesn't it, Pat? I'm here actually to serve two purposes. Jim Nyberg couldn't be here today, and if Jeanne Hansen is the mother of Snoqualmie, and I absolutely agree with that, Snoqualmie Ridge, Jim Nyberg was the father of Snoqualmie Ridge. Thank you for that. Jim would have loved to have been here. He created a number of communities around the region, but this one was the one he was most proud of, and he was really the backbone behind it. And there are a few other employees. I see Ken Kravanek, current president of Quadrant. Ken, thank you for coming. Also a resident of Snoqualmie Ridge. And Pete Limberis I saw earlier out there. So we're still out there, still enjoying the fruits of 20 years of labor. But what I'd like to do is read a couple of comments I'm getting your paperwork mixed up with my paperwork. I want to read a note from Jim. I'm sorry I cannot attend the dedication of the Jeanne Hansen Community Park. Jeanne was a very big part of the development of Snoqualmie Ridge. I've always been indebted to her for her help to make this planned community happen. In 1986, when Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Company petitioned the City of Snoqualmie to annex Snoqualmie Ridge. Do I see hands going in the air? That was 2 Snoqualmies, okay. The process involved 10 years of negotiations, public hearings, environmental studies, a King County sub-area plan, appeals, and the state Supreme Court decision that allowed the annexation and construction to take place in 1996. Now the last homes are being built, and the long-term vision crafted from the very beginning with input from the City of Snoqualmie, local people, planners, technical consultants, and Weyerhaeuser, we now have a finished product that is much better than we ever imagined. This could not have been possible without very dedicated and passionate people working to make Snoqualmie Ridge a reality. Everyone involved, including the city, consultants, lawyers, a local support group, and Weyerhaeuser believed in the long-term vision. Jeanne Hansen, as a mayor and citizen of Snoqualmie, helped make this vision a reality. Jeanne formed and led a team of city employees and consultants to create the approval process for permitting a very complex planned community. Just imagine it. We didn't even have a process to get an approval at the time. Once the team was formed, she empowered them to carry out the tasks needed to make a successful new addition to the city. I could try and name all the people in the city and their consultants, but I'm afraid I would miss someone. The team allowed the annexation process and the permitting for construction of the next phase of the City of Snoqualmie possible. Without Jeanne's leadership, Snoqualmie Ridge may not have happened, or could be just one piecemeal neighborhood after another. Snoqualmie Ridge is a testament to a person who has the commitment and the passion to make a long-term vision happen. I can think of no better way to honor Mayor Jeanne Hansen than to dedicate a community park in her name. Thank you, Jim Nyberg. So I get a chance to make a few comments as well. I'm glad Jim wrote this note because he was an important part of our team and creating this reality. In my retirement, I've had a few months now to reflect on what it was that I and Quadrant and Weyerhaeuser did over the last 30 years. And Snoqualmie was one of the many communities that we built. But in those time off, I've walked a few of the trails, climbed a few of the mountains, and had the opportunity to walk and, in fact, drive through the community over the last few weeks. And I was just very impressed with what I saw. It's amazing here today to see all these folks collected for this picnic, but just the day-to-day operation of the community, the strollers, the coffee house, the businesses, the houses, the median is all up and growing and well taken care of. It really has come together as a community. And when you pour over a set of plans, and when you design the houses, and you sell and build and permit, there's a passion there and there's a vision, but you never really know how it's going to turn out until the people make it their own. And this is a perfect example of it. And it's just so fulfilling for me, after 30 years of doing this, to see how the community has adopted the vision both city and developer had and made it real, made it enlivened the passion that we had for it on paper. So thank you to all the citizens of Snoqualmie, and I couldn't be more pleased to see how it's come to life. And thank you for that, and thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to say thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And as Peter said, it was well stated that it was a vision largely forged together through some, at times, very difficult and tough negotiations. But once the details were settled upon, there was a great deal of passion and commitment from both sides to build a beautiful community. And I just want to, you know, at the risk of not mentioning some folks, I do want to mention a couple key folks. And I did write this down in advance, Bill. I had you. I just wanted to say, you know, Dave Dorothy. I don't think Dave could be here today. For many years, he was the manager of Snoqualmie Ridge, and again, he, along with George Cook and Bill Whitaker here, were just great folks to work with on this whole development. I also want to mention, I should have made comments after Kathy's comments that Mayor Fuzzy Fletcher would have loved to have been here today too. He played a big role, particularly in the second phase of Snoqualmie Ridge, but had a family emergency or medical emergency to attend to. So he sends his regrets and congratulations. So with that, at this time, I'm really pleased to introduce to you Pat Anderson. Pat served as Snoqualmie City Attorney and as a Senior Policy Analyst over the tenure of 7 Snoqualmie mayors, including Jeanne Hansen, prior to his retirement just this past year. He has been involved with every detail of Snoqualmie Ridge since its first inception nearly 30 years ago. His impact on the quality and character of Snoqualmie Ridge and the city overall has been profound, and the community is deeply indebted to his extraordinary contribution. With that, please warmly welcome Pat Anderson.
I don't recognize the guy he was talking about. Jeanne Hansen was not the mayor at the conception of Snoqualmie Ridge. Darwin Sukett was the mayor in those years. Okay, I'll hold it closer here. Jeanne Hansen was not the mayor at the conception of Snoqualmie Ridge. Darwin Sukett was the mayor, and as mentioned, that was in 1986 when I first had that laid out on my conference table in Snoqualmie. Nor was she involved at all in Snoqualmie Ridge 2. Her term was over by the time Snoqualmie Ridge construction even started. Basically in 1998 was when Mayor Fletcher came in. There was the first house hadn't been constructed yet, and so yet I say that more than any other person, this is Jeanne Hansen's legacy. What you see all around you, this marvelous community of Snoqualmie Ridge, is Jeanne Hansen's legacy, even though she wasn't here when it started and she wasn't part of Snoqualmie Ridge 2. So why do I say this? And I think the word's been mentioned before. It's transformation. Jeanne Hansen brought this struggling former mill town that couldn't pay the city's bills, and believe me, there were some months when my bills weren't paid, to become this fabulous community that you all see around you today. How did she do it? Well, Dave Batty, where are you sitting, Dave? Yes, Dave Batty described Jeanne as a low ego leader, and I think that's an absolutely marvelous description of her. Jeanne's true genius was in finding the right people for the job she saw before her. And her instincts about the people were unerring in every instance. She knew Snoqualmie needed to have professional staff, so its interests would be given equal weight with the developer's interests as we march through the planning process. And she and I and Weyerhaeuser folks figured out how to make that happen, so that Weyerhaeuser was funding a professional staff for Snoqualmie to make this great community what it became. And she first brought on, I'm going to mention some names of people who are really important. Kim Wild was the first city administrator, and Kim deserves so much credit for bringing professionalism to the city of Snoqualmie. She made a formerly contracted city planner, Leroy Gamazel, an employee of the city, so we had professional planning in the city. She hired Bob Hansen, no relation to Jeanne, as the first full-time city engineer, so we had engineering knowledge on staff. So this staff was up to the task. As has already been mentioned, she brought in outside consultants, and some of those I see around. I love you, Bill. She solicited advice from staff, and two of the most important recommendations came from Leroy Gamazel, the planner. He first said we need to have land use expertise on staff to equal Weyerhaeusers. So we hired Jay Durr of Buck and Gordon. And believe me, Jay Durr's contribution to this community cannot be underestimated. I'm sorry Jay's not here. I think he'd enjoy being here. I learned most of what I know about land use at Jay Durr's side. And so I really appreciated that. The other thing that Leroy realized was that in addition to the on-staff city engineer, we needed a first-class engineering consultant, and so we brought on Pertite, and we've been so fortunate to have Pertite Engineering handling all of the engineering needs of Snoqualmie. She also brought on traffic engineers, water and sewer, stormwater, environmental engineers, and you know, many of you are here. But most importantly, I think was, and I love the guy like a brother, was Rami Kutzal, who was a guy who led us through from the Parkway on to all of the civil engineering in Snoqualmie Ridge. I want to mention also, as has already been done, the people from Weyerhaeuser. And the people we dealt with most in Jeanne's time, as has been mentioned, was Jim Nyberg, and of course George Cook, and they were really good people. And I want to mention their attorneys, Jerry Hillis and Rick Peterson, with whom we had so many meetings and went through the Nisqually earthquake hiding under the table upstairs with Jerry Hillis. And I always believed these people, word was their bond. When Jim Nyberg told me something, I knew I could count on it being correct. My professional advice was still always get it in writing. And later on, I mean, how could I not acknowledge Peter for, you know, for the things that Peter's done here? And Bill, my Lord, we went through so many years, didn't we, of building this community, and I am so proud of what we have around it. After Jeanne left office at the end of 1997, the Snoqualmie Parkway opened to traffic and the first homes would be built. The course was set. The most important decisions had already been made before the first house was built. Everything, decisions about the community character, parks and trails, infrastructure, the community center, these decisions were all made under Jeanne's guidance. And through eventful and tumultuous times, sometimes she was our leader. She was a beacon of grace and calmness. She was our inspirational leader. She simply told us what we needed to accomplish. She placed her trust in us to do that, and I'm honored and privileged to have been able to work for Jeanne and the City of Snoqualmie for all of those years. Thank you.
We've saved our most distinguished guest for last. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Congressman Dave Reichert. Dave has over 40 years of public service, starting with the U.S. Air Force Reserves and 33 years in the King County Sheriff's Office, 8 of those years as King County Sheriff. He was elected to the U.S. Congress in 2004, where he is now serving his 5th term. Congressman Reichert is now 7th in seniority on the Ways and Means Committee and is chair of the Human Resources Subcommittee. He is also one of only 2 Republican House members who sit on the President's Export Council. Please give a warm welcome to Congressman Dave Reichert.
Well, good evening, everyone. Let me just begin my comments by saying Snoqualmie. Snoqualmie. And Snoqualmie one more time. It's an honor to be here, and I've been sitting in this chair and I've watched all the action behind me, but I've also been listening to all the words that have been shared by the previous speakers, and what a lot of work that has gone into this. So I was introduced by Matt as the most, I think he said most extinguished, but I'm also not only the most extinguished speaker, but I'm the most, I did the least on this project. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm honored to be here to speak to you. So hey, an honest politician, I had nothing to do with this great project that you guys have all put together. It's awesome. But we all know where the name Snoqualmie came from, the first people who settled here, right? Snoqualmie Indians. Do you know who the first explorer, so he's defined as the first explorer who came to the Snoqualmie area was? Samuel Hancock. Do you know where he came from to explore the Snoqualmie area? Tacoma. And you know, in his notes, what he wrote down about the Snoqualmie Valley? He wrote in his notes, a land of good and productive. Good and productive land is what he wrote in his notes. I guess he was right, don't you think? It sure looks good. It's very productive, right? And here we are today to name this good and productive land that we're on today after a person who has served this community with the heart of a servant. That's the way I like to think of Jeanne. She had the heart of a servant. Someone said earlier, she served without an ego. And that's someone who just comes to this world every day knowing that they're here to serve the people that we live together with. Now, I've been at events over the last few weeks that have named a post office yesterday for Margaret Anderson, who served the community of Eatonville and Mount Rainier. You may remember her. She was killed in the line of duty. The Maple Valley area, where they just named a precinct after, again, renamed a precinct after 2 deputies who were killed in the line of duty. We serve in different ways, and our children need to remember those who served. And Jeanne served this community with her whole heart. And so now when people come to the park and the kids see the name, and the parents know Jeanne, and the grandparents know Jeanne, and the kids say, why is this park named Jeanne Hansen Park? Now you can tell them, and you can share that heart of a servant with your children, and they may one day also have a park named after them. So I thank you so much for having me here today to be a part of this dedication ceremony, and I look forward to visiting with you after all these awesome speeches have ended. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. Very much appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule. Just make a quick note that we appreciate too that Dave does a lot of work with the Greenway and conservation groups and on the Alpine Lakes Wilderness efforts to do a lot of conserving this beautiful quality of life we enjoy out here. So we appreciate your efforts in that regard. So I'd just like to do a few quick recognitions before we get to the fun stuff. We're here cutting the ribbon and unveiling the monument in a moment. Snoqualmie Ridge is a huge challenge in 2 regards. One, you've heard all the details about what it took to build this whole place, but now there's another thing that has to happen. That's how do you take care of this whole place? And so I don't have time to do it, but I just want to say all the city staff out here, raise your hand, guys. I see some city staff. Just if you see them and know who they are, just give them a slap on the back and say, hey, thanks for what you do for this community. And then by name, I have the great pleasure and honor of working with a very dedicated and smart group of people in your city council who are willing to make tough decisions and take a long view down the road and forecast what it's going to take care of this place. And I think they've been doing an exceptional, they've been very disciplined about putting aside resources to make sure we're going to properly take care of this place. So if I could quickly, I'm going to say their names, ask them to stand, remain standing. Hold your applause until they're all standing. Councilmember Bob Jeanes, Councilmember Shelley Patterson, Councilmember Brian Holloway, Councilmember Kingston Wall, Councilmember Heather Munden, Councilmember Charles Peterson, Councilmember Kathy Pruitt as Mayor Pro Tem, and also want to note former council members Maria Henderson and Jeff McNichols, who just left the council this past year after many hard years of service. So please give them all a round of applause for what they did. This was like the YMCA. This was another difficult partnership that we forged with the developer to consolidate resources in this park, and that the city put resources in to transfer these into artificial turf fields so we could get far more play for this community with all these kids here. Unfortunately, we thought we'd have to leave this third field, the football field, unfinished. But to our pleasant surprise, the Snoqualmie Valley Youth Soccer Association stepped up and offered a $170,000 donation to get this field completed. It'll be seated by the time this is open, and then we'll have that open for play next season. So a big round of applause for the Soccer Association. And the Mouthside Lacrosse Club donated $8,000 to make sure that these fields were striped properly for lacrosse. It's been a big, popular, new kind of sport in the valley here, and they're hungry for new fields, so a big kudos to them as well. And then I was informed some years ago, back in 1979-80, Jeannie served as the president of the Washington State Business and Professional Women's Association. And as was informed, we have a group of about 12 of them here tonight. Why don't you guys raise your hands and let the folks know you're here. Thank you for coming to honor her memory. And then lastly, if there's one person I would single out, you know, Pat's probably been the longest tenure of anybody that actually was here from the beginning to nearly the end. But there's one other person, one other staff member who's going to be leaving our team this year and retiring at the end of this year, whose vision and discipline of just holding us all to the vision of what this community should have been has been phenomenal. Her fingerprints are on everything you see here, and that is our planning director, Nancy Tucker. Where's Nancy? Nancy, please stand. Nancy, thanks for all that you've done for Snoqualmie. Okay, with that, I believe we're ready to get on to the fun stuff, which often tends to be a bit of the chaotic stuff too. So we have two little quick ceremonies. One is we're going to cut the yellow ribbon over here, and that's going to be more symbolization of the build out of Snoqualmie Ridge. And then we're going to quickly move over to the white sheet you see covering the memorial to Jeanne Hansen. And we have a distinguished guest here this evening. I'd like to introduce Bob Hansen. If you could please stand. This is Jeanne Hansen's son. And you have, I think you have some family that flew in from out of state here too. Yeah. So thanks for coming. So Bob will be given the honors of unveiling the stone, just so you know who he is when we get over there. So at this time, I'd just like to ask city council members, speakers, Pat and Nancy in particular, and any of you who are key representatives of any builders, engineers, and organizations, let's try and get you all crammed into the photograph there.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's see what those scissors can do. Oh, no.